You know, after watching sports documentaries, sometimes I think, maybe I can see myself playing this sport, but not with tennis. The way Naomi Osaka trains and her hard work, yeah, I'm gonna stick to my basketball simulators. NBA 2K, yeah, let's go. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're talking all about Naomi Osaka, the new exclusive documentary series on Netflix, which debuts July 16th. Guys, this weekend, if you're a big fan of tennis or even just of Naomi Osaka, this is one you don't want to miss. There are 3 episodes that are about 40 minutes each, and it's directed by Garrett, who also directed the extraordinary documentary Time. I'm telling y'all, if you have not seen that film, you need to go and watch it. Garrett is probably my favorite documentary director currently. She's excellent, and the way she approaches documentaries and filming them and framing the stories is just beautiful. We'll talk all about that and so much more in my review. But before we get started, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where we talk about movies and TV like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, y'all. Hit the thumbs up button if you are a big fan of Naomi Osaka, and get loud in the comments below and let me know what you thought of this documentary when you watch it. Which episode is your favorite, and did it meet your expectations if you are a fan of this amazing athlete? Alrighty, y'all. Well, you know what? Let's talk about what this documentary is even centering around. The 3-part documentary series opens with a 2018 match against Serena Williams where she won and put herself on the map for non-tennis fans, and follows all the way up to her preparations for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Now, like I mentioned, all 3 of these episodes are pretty short, and I will talk about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but let's dive into what worked with this documentary, and it starts with exactly how this was filmed. Garrett has a very unique style, which I was familiar with after watching her documentary Time, but here we get such a cinematic approach. This entire documentary is absolutely stunning, guys. In episode 1, there's this film grain effect swimming across the screen, which gives it this very vintage and personal feel. And then in episodes 2 and 3, we get introduced to some of my favorite transitions in any documentary. There's one in particular where the camera kind of zooms in to this airplane flying overhead, swings down, and you either get a world clock of the US, Tokyo, or wherever Naomi Osaka is going to travel next. And it's just incredible. And then I love the choice to use a lot of zooms in and out to almost add to that pressure and tension that Naomi Osaka herself is feeling. And then you add all that with some beautiful storytelling where each episode really does focus on a central part of her life. I mean, the episode titles alone, Rise, Champion Mentality, and New Blueprint, really tell a story in and of itself. So you just had the technical aspect to the storytelling aspect, and Garrett has herself a winner. And I'm also a fan of how this documentary was less about Naomi the athlete and more about Naomi the person. I'm an absolute sucker for sports documentaries. I know you guys probably saw my reviews for The Last Dance on ESPN, but here I was really interested in understanding about Naomi Osaka herself, because I'm not an avid tennis follower. Yes, my favorite tennis player is Serena Williams, and she's one of the best athletes of all time. But I knew that Naomi Osaka was a good player, I just didn't know what her background was like. Where did she come from, and who is she as a person? And this documentary helped teach me about that. We learn about her childhood in episode 1, then bounce very quickly to her 2018 US Open match versus Serena Williams, and then during episodes 2 and 3, we continue to just have this back and forth between her wins, losses, and day-to-day activities. But guys, I'll be honest, it's not about the big matches, it's not about her facing the press. For me, it was really interesting to get this deep dive into her life. The in-between moments, the tiny, quiet scenes really struck a chord with me, whether it be her spending time with her sister and her family, traveling to Haiti to see and discover some of her roots, or just being in Japan and really taking a stand and saying, I'm going to represent Team Japan at the Olympics. And then, of course, and we'll talk about it, her stance when it comes to social justice was incredible to see. And there's even this little moment, it's maybe not even 5-10 seconds long, where you see this man stringing together her tennis racket for the Australian Open, I believe, and I don't know, I was just totally captivated by it. And outside of the documentary allowing us to understand the pressure she faces from her day-to-day, we get introduced to a very pivotal moment in her life when she decides to take that stand during the Black Lives Matter movement. And this documentary does a very good job at addressing that, even though I do wish they lingered on it a little bit more and gave us even more context to her taking that stance. I thought it was very well done for the time that we were given in episode 3. But it was in episode 3 where we saw exactly the toll it took on Naomi Osaka, who is half black and half Japanese. So her being this athlete on such a grand stage, I feel like a lot of her peers weren't taking this stand, and when she was the first woman to step up in this world of tennis and she basically said, I'm withdrawing from this tournament, it was a huge turning point in her career. A lot of people hated it, but for me, I'm in the camp that says, go ahead, girl. I love that you took that stand, and I'm glad that she was able to wear those masks to represent those men and women who unfortunately were murdered. And it just is such a powerful moment. In episode 3, I don't know if I even blinked once. But of all the 3 episodes, guys, I would say that episode 2, Champion Mentality, was my absolute favorite. The runtime is 42 minutes for this episode, and it is the longest of the 3, but for me, it just allowed a lot of these moments to just breathe and play out, whether it be Naomi Osaka dealing with a huge loss at one of the slams she participated in, into her going into the offseason, spending time with her sister and her loved ones, dealing with fashion, and the day-to-day of just keeping her name and brand alive was incredible to witness. I honestly didn't know she did that much outside of tennis, but it was just the pacing in this episode that allowed me to understand, and I almost felt like I was in the room with her and her trainer, whomever it was. I feel like those conversations were so personal, and I'm glad we were basically the fly on the wall in those scenes. And honestly, guys, this is a very digestible documentary. You could watch this in one day, like I did, but there are some things that I took away from here that weren't as positive, and the one at the top, and honestly my only negative note here, is that the length of this documentary is both a blessing and a curse. I do feel like Garrett Bradley tells enough of Naomi Osaka's story here for us to be interested in her journey ahead, but I won't lie, I kind of wanted more. Episodes 1 and 3 were about 30 minutes long, and episode 2, like we just talked about, 42 minutes. And it's no coincidence that episode 2 was the best of the 3 to me, because it felt complete, and everything else by the end didn't feel as whole. I feel like there were more stories to be explored and a big chunk was missing. I was also hoping they would have spent more time with Naomi Osaka and her family, because even though we do get a lot of that in episode 3, I don't feel like we got enough, because I did want to see a little bit more about her background growing up. I wanted to understand where she came from, and I have the surface level understanding of that, but I feel like there could have been another episode added here, maybe even one that was dedicated to just that. And then when they get to Haiti, I was so engaged, but then the end credits come incredibly quick. I do wish that there were more moments where we lingered and things simmered a little bit longer, because I do think that adding another episode or 2 again would have just made this documentary even better. But overall, you guys, Naomi Osaka is still a very good sports documentary. What we get here is exactly the story Garrett Bradley wanted to tell, which is Naomi Osaka is more than just a tennis player. And there's this amazing line, especially at the end of episode 1, where Naomi Osaka asks, "What am I if I am not a good tennis player?" And that is really the foundation for this documentary series. We're learning what Naomi Osaka does off the court rather than focus on her wins on the court. So I do think that the message was expressed wonderfully. It is beautifully shot, and I definitely recommend this if you're a fan of Naomi Osaka and of tennis. And I do understand that she faces a ton of pressure, and every time I watch her now from this point on, I just have a newfound respect for her. Again, like I mentioned, not a lot of things that are terrible here, but I do wish that it were a little bit longer, or that they might have focused more on her family. That's the one thing missing from making this documentary an A+, but this is still very strong. It's a 4 out of 5 if I had to rate it. So guys, I definitely recommend that you check out Naomi Osaka this weekend on Netflix. But again, I need to know what you have to say about it, so go ahead and get loud in the comments down below. Let me know, and if you haven't, hit the big red button, subscribe to the channel, because we're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and that's all because of you. Alrighty, y'all. Well, you know what? I gotta go get ready for Space Jam: A New Legacy. I got much more coming this week. iCarly. Ooh, boy, it's about to be fun. Francesca Ramsey is writing the script for that episode, and so much more, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And maybe I'll work on my backhand. Yeah, no, that's not happening.